Hello everyone, this is Christian Mel at Exciton Interactive, and in this video we are going to animate our splash screen. So we'll see if I refresh, we'll see our splash screen and it will fade out. We're going to do that by taking a fairly modular approach to adding in our animations through adding in several files and a bunch of mix-ins. But we'll see how to do all of that in this video. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started here. So start creating our animations. First thing that we're going to do is come into the animations folder and create a new file here. So my goal is to basically create the components, the CSS components for this animation sort of as composable as possible, which basically revolves around creating a bunch of mix-ins for everything. So the first file that we're going to create is an _animation options. Of course, we have to pass in a lot of options to our animations, and they're going to be a lot of common things. So let's just create a file to hold them. So we'll create a mix-in here, and we're going to call animation options. So for that, we're going to pass in a duration, which will default to 200 milliseconds, and we'll pass in an easing, which we will default to ease in, out, and animation duration, which will be the duration. What's the extent of that? Animation, what's a fill mode, which is forwards. Animation timing function, which is the easing. And while we're at it, we're just going to do a nice, I did in fact one hidden there. So we have our overflow hidden. Alright, so now we have our options specified. We're going to create another file inside the animations folder, _animation fade.sass. So inside of here, we'll just import the animation options that we specified. So let's create a mix-in here, mix-in animation keyframes fade in. So we want our keyframes, and this one's fade in, and no curly braces. So we go from opacity of 0 to opacity of 1. Perfect. So we have our fade in. Of course, we're going to need a fade out. Fade out, please, fade out. 1 to 0. And so we have fade in, fade out keyframes. If I'm going to do fading, there's a very good chance that I need both of them. So let's just make it easier to have both of the keyframes included by making another mix-in animation keyframes fade, and we'll just include animation dash keyframes fade in, and let's hit the right, can't even think of the right button, fade out. Alright, so we have the keyframes, or way to include all of the keyframes. Of course, animations for CSS work by applying classes to everything. So let's create a mix-in here, and animation classes fade in. Pass in the duration again. Default, we said 200 milliseconds. Easing, default, ease, in, out. Perfect. And we'll do, so if it has, in the end here, we're going to specify, we're going to say it has this class on it, which means it's something we want to animate. And then we need to say if it also has this class, this is the stage of the animation. So if it also has the fade in active class on it. What we want to do is add include animation dash options, where we passed in the duration and the easing, and the animation name that we have for it is fade in. All right, and so now we'll have two other classes that will be possible on it, which is fade in after. So after it's active, after the active time, we want the opacity to be 1, and then we also are similarly going to have the dot fade dash in before. So before it's active, we'll be sure to set the opacity. Somewhat redundant, we're saying from and to up here, but I like to make sure everything's not jumping around or moving around or whatnot by setting these things first. So now we have the fade in. Of course, we need to specify our fade out. I'm probably going to miss some things here with my copy and pasting. So fade out. I also need an out here, and this should be 0, and this should be 1. Again, let's create an easy way to add these classes, both of these classes together at the same time. So a mix in animation classes fade. We need our usual duration, 200 milliseconds. Easing, ease in, out, and the only thing then we need to include animation classes fade in, and we'll have the duration and the easing. So we need our fade out. Hopefully everything's perfect there. Let's go and close that. So what we'll do now is create another file here, new file. So it's possible, you know, in the end we're going to have some things being faded out. We will animate left and right, you know, so it's different animations. So let's create a separate file. I'll just call it animation.sass. This will be just, hey, I want to import everything that I need to run an animation. So import, or it facilitates that, animation fade. So that's the one that we have. So let's create a mix in animation keyframes. So if I don't want to import, or if I want the ability to import just the keyframes and all of the keyframes, we'll have this one, which does animation keyframes dash fade. Perfect. Ooh, stray semicolon in my notes. Mix in animation classes. And so, like I said, you know, we want to be able to specify that I want this thing to animate. So not only do I want this animation to run, or which animation to run, I want to say this is the thing that runs. So we'll pass in a selector, and then we'll pass in our usual, should just copy and paste this, 200 milliseconds, so our duration, and the easing, which was ease in, out. All right, so now we'll do a little string interpolation here and say selector. So if it's the selector is present and it has the classes associated with it, so let's put animation classes fade. This will be duration and easing. Perfect. So now maybe I just wanted to, so I'd have to add the mix in for keyframes and classes if I wanted this to all work right. So let's just create our one last mix in animation. We'll just call it animation package. Has the same set of stuff that we need. So let's just put it right there. And what we'll do is just say at include, ooh, messed that all up. include animation keyframes. So now I'll get all the keyframes, in this case just the fade, or for now just the fade, animation classes, and we'll pass in the selector, the duration, and the easing. Save that. We'll find out here shortly if that's all typed correctly, whether we get the little error notification. First things first, let's go back to our application. We go to the About page. We'll see here that if I hover over the app, that it doesn't extend the entire height of our application. No sneeze. All right, and so the first thing that we're going to do is go to the app.view and fix the height thing. So let's just say height 100% here. So now it's extending the entire height of everything. So I want the animations to be able to run on whatever component excuse me, inside my application. So let's just import the stuff that we need inside of the app. So what we'll do is say import, and what we need there is components / animations / animations. So that was that file that holds everything for us, and now we just do include. Why are you giving me? I don't want that. Include animation package, and the class. So the selector that we're going to include on everything is just to say that it has a class of animatable. Save that. Yeah, look at that. Managed to do it without an error. We have no build error popping up. We'll just assume everything's all rosy here. What we'll do is go down to the splash screen now, and I will just copy stuff in. I just grabbed this stuff from the whatever home page, just shows the image and gives you that little, you know, this is a app with TypeScript. So on our animatable item here, I'm going to include or add another binding, v-bind, and we're going to do duration so that we can change the duration of this thing. And we're going to say this one's going to take 500 milliseconds instead of 200. The thing that we're going to run here is, of course, we don't need to click anymore. We'll just convert it to mounted, and inside of that, what I'm going to do is just set a timeout, and it's going to run after a couple seconds. What's going to run? Well, we're going to send our message to the animatable item. Let's go ahead and refresh that, and actually go to the console, and we still have our test coming in. I guess in the notes I changed it to fade out. Actually doesn't matter because it's we're not going to pay attention to it here. So fade out. Perfect. So now we go to the animatable item. First thing that we're going to do is adjust. Oh, skip something. Splash, back to splash screen. Let's make it an actual splash screen here and do some styling. So some scoped sass, and inside of here we're going to start by importing. So I've done another video related to what I use, sort of helper functions and stuff that I've import or install for sass, which are these two things here. So bourbons functions, and then bitters is sort of a starting point for some default styling. You don't have to install them here. You're going to see real quick what I'm doing here. Splash screen, which reminds me, oops, that I forgot to add to our animatable item our dot splash screen. So on the splash screen, so bourbon just lets me write include position absolute, and so it's just a one line to set the position and top, bottom, left, and right. You can obviously do them on your own. Index, this on top of everything, so let's just make it 10,000. Display flex direction column, and justify content center line items center, and last but not least, background color. And this is the bitters part of it. Viewport background color. That's just white. And we failed on something. Failed to import bitters because it's a plural. So now everything's working and we have everything centered like we want. Let's close the splash screen. Back to our animatable item. First things we can get rid of. Let's do some template stuff here. So what we'll do is to vbind class. So of course we're running these animations. We have to add the classes to it. So vbind class, vbind style. So the way that we can override duration, animation, duration. We'll specify a duration. What else do we need? We need a v on. So v on, animation end. We'll put the prevent animation end. All right, so that takes care of modifying the template here. So now we've said that we're going to have this duration here. So let's set it as a prop at prop. We're going to actually specify a default here. And that default is our good old 200 milliseconds. And this prop was private read-only duration. Be set for us, and it's going to be a string. All right, let's deal with some classes here. So private, so we have the active CSS class, defaults or starts empty. And then we have the after CSS class, also starts empty. Last but not least, the before CSS class, and empty. Perfect. But now we said in our template that we're going to have this CSS class, and that's just going to be a computed property here. So private get CSS class. And what we'll do is just return a string here. Do the interpolation on this before CSS class. And then this dot active. And then we'll do this dot after. So that should take care of all of that. Now we'll do with animate. So we want to animate, and the way that we're going to do that, so the first thing that we're going to do is to say this dot before CSS class. Like I said, we're going to ignore this animation string that's coming in, just hard code things for now. Fade out before. And now a short time while afterwards, I want the animation to start, and the way that we're going to do that is just by saying request animation frame. And in that request, then all we're going to do is to say this dot active class is now fade out active. I'm going to do a little bit of nesting here, so we request another animation frame. So after we've added that active, we're just going to say this dot no, where'd that come from? Before is now empty. Perfect. Now, once our animation ends, a method called animation end is going to run, and inside there, we're just going to say after CSS class is now fade out after. And once again, request another animation frame. So once that, we'll say this dot active is now empty. Perfect. So we'll save that. And if all goes as planned, we will here see if it does it on its own here in a second. Let's just refresh, cross our fingers. 2 seconds later, 2 seconds later. Hello, do some animations. So let's see what we're missing here. So we do have the fade out active is being applied to it like it's supposed to. Yeah, it flipped. It's hard to see there, I'm sure, but it flipped from fade out before to fade out active, which means that I've made a mistake somewhere. Probably. Oh, I know what the mistake is, right? So, where am I supposed to? So I missed it, right? We said that we also have to have the animatable CSS class applied to our object if we want our element, if we want it to fade, and just did it there. So if I refresh, we have our splash screen that fades out, right? Perfect. So now we're applying the animations in principle on demand, right? It's happening because we're making this call to next on our animation subject. Of course, like I said, we're passing in a string into the animatable item that we're ignoring. And point of fact, I don't want to pass a string in the first place. So we're going to deal with that. So we'll add the ability to say what animation we want to run without using the string. And then we'll clean up the fact that we have these strings inside here. But we'll take care of that, and I think maybe a couple other things inside of the next video. Until then, I will talk to you later. Thank you for taking the time to watch our video. I know that your time is valuable. If you liked the video, please subscribe to our channel and click the thumbs up button, as well as share the video with your friends. If you have any comments, questions, or suggestions, please leave them in the comments section below. And once again, thank you, and I will talk to you in the next video.